Leader Aaron O'Toole calls for a relocation of the 2022 Olympic Games out of China. 13 of our MPs also call for a boycott of China. While the Canadian Olympic Committee Chief Executive David Shoemaker says that boycotts do not work. This is the Great White North Report. Aaron O'Toole got a vote of confidence from me when he calls for the relocation of the 2022 Olympic Games out of China. I've been calling this one for over a year now. He says Canada shouldn't send athletes to a state accused of genocide and human rights abuses, not to mention the hostage diplomacy and the trade infractions they've done against Canada. This will be the second genocide games that China has held and the first pandemic games. He's also talking about the Paralympic Games as well. And Canadians would agree that it would violate universal fundamental ethic principles to participate in the Olympic Games hosted by a country that is committing a genocide against part of its population. O'Toole said Trudeau should lobby the International Olympic Committee to identify alternative countries where the Games can be held, although he stopped short of calling on Canadian athletes themselves to boycott the international sporting event. It's only if relocation is not possible and there's no change of conduct by the state of China that we should examine whether our athletes compete. So let's face the facts, the IOC is never going to pull the Games out of China. There's too much money involved and the IOC is very corrupt. What Canada should do is boycott the Games in China and create our own little games and invite other countries to participate, and those that don't want to send official delegations to our games as well and have them at the same time. Then invite athletes who recently retired from Olympic competition, didn't make the cut or weren't allowed to, try and get some A-list talent and some B-list talent and have a competitive game and have our Canadian broadcasting to put it out there. So O'Toole, he's definitely on board with pulling the Olympics out of Beijing, or at least boycotting them altogether, and I'm quite in agreement with that. But Trudeau, being the panderer that he is and the China lover, said that there's no question that human rights abuses have occurred in Xinjiang. Genocide is an extremely loaded term that should be applied only in accordance with internationally recognized criteria. What more do you want? Trudeau lives in a bubble. So more of our MPs called to relocate 2022 Beijing Games over the Uyghur abuses. And this is nothing new. Christians are abused. Falon Gong, Hong Kong, Spavor, and Kovrig. What more do we need? So 13 MPs from all 5 major federal parties in Canada have signed a letter urging the IOC to move the Olympics to another country. It won't happen, but at least we have 13 MPs with some balls. Also, I don't agree with Beijing because the mountains behind Beijing don't have snow, so they're going to have to use fake snow for the entire games. Not exactly a winter paradise, but because Beijing is the center of China and the center of the CCP power, it has to be there. So the letter from our MPs was initiated by Bloc Québécois MP Alexis Brunel Giuseppe, Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Subcommittee. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Bloc Québécois, but in this case, I will agree with them. So here are the other MPs who supported this. Bloc Québécois MPs Denis Trudel and Stéphane Bergeron. Conservative MPs Arnold Viersen, Kathy Wagentail, and Kelly Block. Liberal MPs Ken Hardy, Nathan Erskine-Smith, and Zamir Zuberi. NDP MPs Heather McPherson and Jenny Kwan, and Green MPs Elizabeth May and Paul Manley. So this is definitely a rare moment of unity among all 5 parties, though I wish there was more widespread. Now they're saying they don't want to enter Canada politics because we're going to lose some allies. Not really. It's time for us to step up. The Olympic Games is all about politics. It's never been about sports, not for the longest time. So the parliamentarians are not calling for a boycott. This letter distances itself from existing calls to boycott, which some view as a method of diplomacy that would punish athletes. Well, like if we set up our own little games and reward our athletes better for winning and participating, it won't be so bad. Because I do agree with the Olympic dream, I know that, but sometimes you have to make a stand too. Hell, a lot of athletes made stands for Black Lives Matter. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. Green leader Annamie Paul, my respect for her has gone up because she says Canada should consider hosting the 2022 Olympics, which is what I've been calling for. Now, the letter from Canada also has included gold medalist Jean-Luc Brassard and former Liberal Cabinet Minister Erwin Kotler, and calls from 180 human rights groups to boycott the Beijing Games slated to kick off February 4, 2022. The problem with the last Olympics in 2008, there was a lot of protests during the entire time, but it never happened. Nothing happened. We protested. It made the CCP looked bad, but the game still went off. And because nothing happened in 2008, 2022 is going to be no different. The CCP will not make any changes to how they do things in their own country. And other countries coming to China will be seen as, will give them a great deal of face, which I'll get into in a minute. Now, this article goes on to say that Canada should convene with its allies in order to consider all the options to get the Chinese government and other states committing human rights violations back into compliance with international law. First of all, China has never been in compliance with international law. If anything, Canada should be talking to Australia right now, because Australia is pissed off at China. Together, those two would make a very powerful bloc within. Use the pandemic. After all, it started in Wuhan, China. Now, this article by Yahoo Sports says, will the IOC take a stand? No. They never take a stand. They only go where the money is. The IOC its true ideals are corruption and greed. It's unbelievable how corrupt and greedy the IOC is. Only FIFA comes close to that level of corruption. And the IOC has their own history of human rights violations. Then we get into TSN. TSN says Canada won't boycott Beijing Games. Even though there are a lot of calls to do so, most Canadians would probably be okay with it. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because the Canadian Olympic Committee Chief Executive Officer, David Shoemaker, they spoke about the ineffectiveness of boycott as well as the importance of Canada's participation in Beijing. We joined the 1980 Summer Olympics boycott as a protest of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. Now, did it work? No, because they remained in Afghanistan for another 8 years and even led a revenge boycott in '84. Well, whoop-de-doo. Schumacher thinks that there are two choices: pull out and to barricade ourselves, to divide and to further polarize and stay out of protests we're not going, or to engage and be part of the conversation, to amplify voices. Correct, Canada doesn't have a voice at the table. Canada's international reputation has been shot all to hell over the last 4 years, and we're seen as the toothless old grandma or grandpa that can hardly walk internationally. We have no fangs. Now, Shoemaker, he cites the 91% of the country's population that watched the 2016 games and the 75% watched the Pyeongchang games, despite the 13-hour time difference. Well, there was a difference. Brazil didn't do anything bad, neither did South Korea. China has got 2 of our citizens locked up under hostage diplomacy and another 4 in death row. Also, they've been playing with our trade and they've been infiltrating our systems. That's a difference. The Koreans didn't do that and the Brazilians didn't do that. So I, for one, will not be watching the games myself. See, he's just worried about the money part. Now, the problem I have with Shoemaker is that he's a former head of NBA China before joining the COC. So he's got Chinese connections already. And he's probably taking a lot of money. I wouldn't be surprised if he's received gifts from the Chinese Communist Party. And he's talking about the social justice messages on their jerseys. You can do that in the United States and Canada because we do have that freedom. You cannot do that in China. In the last Olympics, the Chinese had certain designated areas where you could do protests, but no one really was allowed to go there, and no Chinese citizens were even allowed close to that area. So it's all a pipe dream there. So Shoemaker is definitely bought, as far as I'm concerned. So if we boycott the Beijing 2022 Olympics, or demand relocation, and then just start our own games at the same time in Canada and invite athletes from all over the world, except for China, it will be a huge slap in the face. And face is an important thing in Asian culture. See, Beijing, just by having the Olympics, the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics, they gained a huge amount of face among their people. Hey, the international community is coming to us. Our system's working. Who cares what we do in our own country? They will still come. They will still bring their money. We can control the media. They gain a lot of face. Now, if Canada refuses to go and boycotts it, then China loses face because, hey, we're one of the top countries in Winter Olympics, especially in curling, hockey, and is not going. So there will be an asterisk beside the games. And that's something the Chinese would prefer not to have. Face is that prevention of embarrassment at all costs. So many aspects of face. One can lose face, gain face, and lose face for others. So basically, if Canada has lost face consistently in regards to its China-Canada policies, Trudeau has no face in China, or in Asia, or anywhere internationally. This is why it's time for Trudeau to go. Face is a big deal, not only in China, but also Korea. In Korea, and I've lived in Korea and China, if one of them did not know an answer to, if you ask them something and they don't know the answer, they will tell you what they think you want to hear, rather than lose face in non-knowing. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. I've been on many a wild goose chase. So remember, Trudeau is he loves China. He admires China's basic dictatorship and gets things done. Because Trudeau cannot get things done. He doesn't know how. He's lost so much faith in China. He's lost so much faith that he has no political pull-in with the Chinese or with anybody. As far as David Shoemaker is, he just cares about the money and the prestige. He doesn't care about Canadians. And he'll do anything he can him and Trudeau will do anything they can to appease the Chinese Communist Party. Anyway, any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think about the Olympics. Should we boycott it? Should we set up our own Olympics and invite people? I'd love to hear what Canadians think. Put your comments below, hit the like button, subscribe, do whatever. But I really want to hear from Canadians about the Olympics. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.